I never thought judgment could feel so heavy amidst glittering chandeliers and the hum of important conversations. There I was, standing near a potted palm in the grand ballroom, trying my best to be invisible in a room full of the city's elite, gathered for the 50th anniversary gala of Ascend Global Solutions, the tech company my family had built. My son, Leo, 7 years old and dressed in a sharp little suit that felt like a triumph of my careful budgeting, stood beside me, his eyes wide with wonder at the spectacle. He believed this night might finally make us feel truly connected to the family legacy. Maybe, just maybe, I allowed myself to hope the same. My younger sister Sophia, however, owned the room. Effortlessly charismatic, celebrated as Ascend's VP of Strategic Partnerships, effortlessly commanding attention with her designer gown and flawless networking skills, she was the shining face of the family enterprise. She received the accolades, the fervent handshakes. I navigated the quiet corner conversations, the subtly raised eyebrows. Still in client relations, Anya? Managed to get away from the day-to-day? Yet I showed up. I smiled through the polite, often condescending inquiries, clapped during the toast to the company's future, and kept my voice even. Then came the key speeches. Sophia stepped up to the podium, radiant and poised, holding a glass of water. I braced myself, perhaps for a standard executive speech, a nod to the company's roots. I should have known better.
Check.
To 50 years of Ascend, she began, her voice amplified, reaching every corner of the room, of setting the standard for innovation. And she paused, a cool, knowing smile playing on her lips, for having a leadership team dedicated to being on the front lines, building those crucial external relationships, and of course for the support staff who make everything run behind the scenes, for those who chose simpler, perhaps less public-facing roles. A ripple of polite, shared laughter passed through the tables. It wasn't loud or vulgar, but the kind that implies understanding, a collective in-joke. My stomach clenched. I looked at Leo, who was frowning, confused.
Check.
Before the murmur subsided, my mother, Eleanor, Ascend's formidable co-founder, leaned into her microphone at the head table, her voice loud enough for nearby tables to catch. Some people prefer comfort zones over contribution to growth, I suppose. Takes all kinds to make a company, even if only one kind drives it forward. More laughter, sharper this time, confirming the collective dismissal. It was the kind of sound that strips you bare. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My face burned, but the tears refused to fall. Not in front of Leo. Not in front of them. My fingers tightened around the small clutch purse under my hand. I scanned the faces, executives, board members, key partners, searching for a flicker of discomfort, a hint of dissent. My father, Ascend's CEO, looked down at his notes. Even my Uncle Thomas, who'd once told me my quiet efficiency was the company's backbone, seemed preoccupied with adjusting his tie. Leo's hurt confusion was the sharpest pain, watching him try to understand why his mother was being publicly diminished by her own family. The people he looked up to, it was unbearable. I wanted to flee, grab Leo's hand, find a side exit, and disappear into the city night. But a deep stubbornness rose in me. I wanted to speak, to tell them they had no idea what my simpler path had truly meant. The countless hours I'd put in ensuring client retention, the quiet problem-solving, the times I had prioritized their public image, their smooth operations, ahead of my own advancement. My throat was tight, my legs felt unsteady. Just as I began to gently pull Leo towards me to make our quiet exit, another chair scraped across the polished floor from the head table. David Chen, Sophia's head of partnerships, a man known for his sharp intellect and quiet integrity, stood slowly. His gaze wasn't on Sophia, or my parents, or the guests. His eyes fixed on me, and in that instant, the room held its breath. This wasn't the planned script. The quiet hum of conversation died completely. You chuckled when a sister publicly minimized her siblings' career choices. You laughed when a co-founder suggested a family member hadn't contributed enough. You did this in front of her son, in front of Leo, who looks up at his mother with absolute adoration. A collective gasp filled the air. A glass clinked loudly somewhere. Leo looked up at me, wide-eyed, no longer confused but awestruck. I was stunned. I had prepared myself for invisibility, for enduring the slights, the dismissive smiles. I hadn't prepared for this. Your mom is one of the most valuable people in this entire company. Never forget that. He turned back to the silent room one last time, his gaze sweeping over the stunned faces of Eleanor and Sophia before resting on the crowd. I think I've seen enough.
Check.
With that, he placed the microphone back on the stand and walked past Sophia without a glance, heading straight for the nearest exit. The background music didn't resume. The crowd remained frozen. The perfect corporate celebration had shattered. He ruined everything! Eleanor screamed. Ungrateful! Her words hung in the air, powerless to reclaim control. For the first time, I didn't feel myself shrink under her voice. Are we leaving, Mama? Leo asked quietly, squeezing my hand. Yes, baby, we're going home, I said, brushing his hair back from his forehead. I stood tall, pulling my shoulders back. People parted automatically as we walked towards the exit. Some looked away awkwardly. Some seemed like they wanted to speak, to offer a hesitant apology or word of support, but couldn't find the courage. Halfway out, my Uncle Thomas, his face pale, stepped out from the crowd and called my name. Anya, I'm so sorry. We should have spoken up, years ago. I nodded. I didn't hate him. I understood the subtle pressures, the cost of silence in this family, in this company, but I wasn't carrying their complicity anymore. Outside, the cool night air was a relief after the stifling tension indoors. Leo squeezed my hand again. Is the party over, Mama? Yeah, I think it ended exactly how it needed to. I smiled, looking up at the stars visible even through the city lights. We drove home in a quiet car, the silence comfortable rather than strained. The next morning, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Missed calls from blocked numbers, texts from distant relatives who never called, even a few colleagues from other departments. I ignored them. A text from a friend who had been there. David's speech was recorded. It's viral online. Everyone's talking about it. People are defending you. I watched the video. David's calm, firm voice cutting through the silence. Me, frozen in the background, holding Leo's hand. The comments were overwhelming. He's a hero for corporate integrity. She deserved better. This is for every person in a support role made to feel invisible. Know your worth. I didn't cry or even smile. Just a stillness, like a knot that had tightened inside for years had finally released its grip. That week, Sophia and Eleanor tried damage control. It was a misunderstanding, they claimed. David overreacted, people were too sensitive, his comments were unprofessional. But the truth had landed, amplified by the viral video. Nobody in the company, nobody online, was buying it anymore. The media picked up on the story. Tech exec slams family cruelty at gala. Viral speech highlights corporate disconnect. David's stand was hailed as a rare moment of integrity. Sophia and Eleanor's public image, so carefully cultivated, was tarnished. David quietly resigned from Ascend Global Solutions shortly after, citing a fundamental disagreement on company values and leadership ethics. No public statement from him, just a quiet, impactful departure. Sophia retreated from her usual public-facing role. My mother called, not to apologize for her comment, but to blame me for the public spectacle David had created by defending me. I listened for maybe 45 seconds, then said the words I never thought I'd speak to her. I'm not your easy target anymore. Then I hung up. It wasn't dramatic, it was simply final. I realized after all of it that I didn't need their apology. I didn't need them to change or suddenly validate my career path, my choices, my worth. I just needed to stop waiting for their permission to see it in myself. My life didn't suddenly transform overnight into glamorous C-suite dinners. I still work hard in client relations, still navigate single parenthood, still budget carefully. But I carry myself differently. I'm not hunched under years of quiet judgment. I don't try to disappear into the background anymore. Leo is changing too. He asks more questions now, not just about spaceships, but about kindness, courage, and what it means to truly stand for something. He talks about David Chen like he's a real-life superhero. He understands that night wasn't about winning an argument, but about simply standing in your truth, and that sometimes, someone unexpected will stand with you. That night, tucking Leo into bed, he looked up at me. "Mama, are you still sad about what Aunt Sophia and Grandma Eleanor said?" "Not anymore, baby." "Why?" He shrugged, already sleepy. "I think you won, even though you didn't fight back." He was right. I didn't fight back with words or anger. I didn't demand an apology or seek revenge. I just stood there, held my son's hand, and prepared to walk away with my dignity intact. And someone else, someone I never expected, decided that silence wasn't an option when faced with cruelty.
Check.
David Chen didn't just stand up for me. He reminded everyone in that room, and countless people online, what genuine integrity looks like. Not the kind that comes with status or wealth or a fancy title, but the kind that sees injustice and says, "No, not today." Being overlooked doesn't mean you're invaluable. Being kind doesn't make you weak. And dignity, once reclaimed, is something no one can ever take from you again. I didn't get the family reconciliation I once quietly hoped for, but I left that ballroom with something far more valuable than their approval. I left with my head held high, my son by my side, and the quiet, unshakable certainty that I no longer need to explain my worth to anyone. That was the ending no one expected and the one I finally deserved.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Here, we take the material you send us and really try to pull out the core insights, basically cutting through the noise.
Exactly, getting to the heart of it. And today, we're looking at a really quite powerful account from one of you listening. It's about a tech executive, Anya.
Right.
She found herself in a deeply uncomfortable family situation playing out publicly at her own family's company gala.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that feels specific, but also, touches on things many people might recognize.
Please start.
So we have this firsthand view of what should have been a celebration, right?
Sure.
The 50th anniversary for Ascend Global Solutions. Big tech firm, family founded.
But things took a turn, a sharp one.
Mm-hmm. And it reveals quite a lot about family businesses, doesn't it? And the sting of public shaming.
And also the power of someone unexpectedly stepping up, integrity in action.
Yes. So our mission really is to unpack all that for you. The tangled mess of family and work, what that kind of public humiliation feels like, and, what happens when someone breaks the script.
It's definitely a personal story, but the themes, the lessons, they're much broader.
Okay, so let's set the scene first. The gala itself sounds pretty grand.
Oh, yeah. Chandeliers, the city's elite, the whole 9 yards, celebrating this big 50-year milestone.
But Anya, even though it's her family's company, she feels like she doesn't quite belong.
Right, like an outsider looking in, which straight away tells you something about the dynamics in these family-run businesses.
That blurring of lines between family and work.
Exactly. Professional roles get mixed up with family history, and it often leads to, unfairness. Fuzzy boundaries.
And she's there with her son, Leo. He's 7.
And he's excited. He sees it as connecting with the family legacy,
Which is understandable, and you get the sense Anya hopes for that too, maybe. But she's also a bit wary.
You can see why, because almost immediately she gets these little digs about her job.
The client relations role. Comments like, "Ooh, still in client relations."
Or manage to get away from the day-to-day. It's subtle, but it's definitely condescending.
It's a way of putting her in her place, basically. Lower down the ladder, despite, whatever her actual contributions are.
In the way it's described, it's almost this casual cruelty. Not shouting, but these small remarks designed to diminish her.
And crucially, in front of Leo.
Yeah, her son is right there, taking it all in, learning about how this family operates.
Then things escalate with the speeches. Sophia, Anya's sister, steps up. She's the VP of Strategic Partnerships.
The public face, kind of.
Right. And during her speech, she makes these comments about support staff.
People in less public-facing roles. And the description mentions this polite shared laughter.
Ooh, that kind of laughter. You know the type. It signals everyone gets the inside joke who the target is.
It's clearly aimed at Anya. And then, as if that wasn't enough,
Their mother, Eleanor, the co-founder.
She follows up, adds a comment about some people preferring comfort zones over contribution to growth.
And the laughter then is described as sharper.
Yeah, now it's undeniable. It's a direct hit. Public humiliation right there in front of everyone.
And her son.
And her son. It really drives home how personal feelings, maybe resentments, can just spill out and be weaponized in that professional family business setting. It's devastating.
You can almost feel Anya's reaction described in the account. Her stomach clenching, face burning.
Can't breathe.
Yeah. But her first thought is for Leo. His confusion. He's seeing his mom treated this way.
And what's also striking is the silence from the rest of the family.
Total silence. Her dad's looking down at his notes. Uncle Thomas is just preoccupied.
Nobody steps in. Nobody says anything. It's like they all just want to disappear.
Which suggests this isn't new, right?
Probably not. It points to, deeply entrenched patterns. Maybe Anya's been dealing with this for years and everyone else just lets it happen. Or maybe even participates.
The silence really speaks volumes about the power dynamics. Keeping the peace or the status quo seems more important than, well, basic decency or family support.
And Anya's just about to leave. Take Leo and just get out of there.
Yeah.
Which is completely understandable.
You would, wouldn't you? Just escape.
But then, something totally unexpected. David Chen stands up.
He's Sophia's head of partnerships, described as having this quiet integrity.
Yeah. And him standing up. That's the moment everything changes.
Yeah.
The whole script gets thrown out.
You can imagine the silence in the room then.
Oh, absolutely. Thick with tension. Shock. Someone is actually breaking rank. Everyone knows this is significant. Unplanned.
And he speaks directly to Anya.
Just says, please don't go.
Simple, but incredibly powerful in that context.
Instantly validates her. Signals to everyone, I see what just happened, and it's not okay.
Then he calls it out directly, condemns the cruelty.
Doesn't mince words. And he specifically points out it happened in front of her son.
Highlighting that extra layer of, how wrong it was, affecting not just her, but her child.
And then he delivers that line about Anya's value.
Your mom is one of the most valuable people in this entire company. Never forget that.
Wow. Just direct, powerful validation. Especially coming from someone in his position inside the company, but outside the immediate family conflict.
It completely undercuts everything her sister and mother just said or implied.
And then he just leaves.
Yeah.
Puts the mic down, walks out.
No drama, no big speech for himself.
No, it wasn't performative. It was just a clear, decisive act. His words and then his exit spoke volumes.
And the silence afterwards, described as stunned. The whole atmosphere just shifted.
You bet it did. The carefully crafted image just shattered.
So, the aftermath. Predictably, maybe.
Yeah.
Eleanor, the mother, reacts with anger.
Yeah. He ruined everything. Ungrateful. That's her immediate response.
Zero self-awareness. It's all about the disruption to their image, not about her own behavior or Anya's feelings.
It really shows that mindset, doesn't it? Where maintaining that perfect facade is everything. More important than how you actually treat people, even family.
And then Leo asks that question.
Well, yeah. Just cuts through everything. Are we leaving, Mama?
Heartbreakingly simple. And Anya's decision to just leave with dignity. It's powerful. She doesn't get drawn into the shouting match.
Her priorities shift to protecting him and herself. That question from Leo. It really grounds the whole scene in simple human terms.
Then Uncle Thomas offers this apology later.
Right, a belated apology. And he mentions the cost of silence.
That's a really key phrase.
It is. It suggests he, and maybe others, knew this wasn't right. They knew Anya was being treated poorly for years.
But they stayed silent, complicit in a way.
Until this huge public blow-up forces some kind of reckoning. It hints at a long history there.
And then the outside world reacts, phones buzzing everywhere.
The video goes viral.
Right. And the online reaction is overwhelmingly positive towards David.
He becomes this kind of hero for corporate integrity.
And people sympathize with Anya. They recognize that feeling of being undervalued, shamed.
It shows the power of someone witnessing and acting, doesn't it? David's intervention didn't just help Anya in the moment, it resonated widely. People value fairness, courage.
Meanwhile, Sophia and Eleanor try to do damage control.
Yeah, spin it as a misunderstanding.
But it completely falls flat.
Nobody's buying it. The public saw what they saw or heard about it. The media picks it up too. Tech exec slams family cruelty at gala.
The narrative is out of their control.
And then David resigns. Quietly.
Which speaks volumes again.
It does. It wasn't about getting attention for himself. It was clearly stated as being about a fundamental disagreement on company values and leadership ethics. It underlines his integrity.
And Eleanor actually calls Anya to blame her.
Unbelievable, isn't it? The lack of accountability.
But Anya's response is different this time.
Yeah, I'm not your easy target anymore.
That's a real turning point. She's reclaiming her power, refusing to play the old role.
It's the sound of someone who's realized something crucial. As the account says, she realized she didn't need their validation anymore.
And it changed how she carried herself, physically.
Yeah, no longer hunched under years of quiet judgment, not trying to disappear. It's a profound internal shift made visible.
And it affects Leo, too. His understanding shifts.
That comment he makes is just remarkable for a kid his age.
Because I think you won, even though you didn't fight back.
Wow, he gets it. He sees that strength isn't just about fighting. It's about dignity, resilience, inspiring others, maybe?
So the core takeaways here really seem to be about the power of just standing in your truth, even quietly.
Absolutely, and the huge impact an unexpected ally can have when they act with integrity.
And ultimately, reclaiming your dignity, even after being publicly humiliated. Anya didn't fight back in kind. She just chose to leave with her head held high, ready to walk away.
And that, in itself, was the win.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've really dug into those tricky, often toxic dynamics in family businesses.
Yeah, seeing the real damage public humiliation can do.
And witnessed the incredible power of one person's courage, how it can completely change the narrative.
It's Anya's specific story, yes, but it touches on these universal things: dignity, self-worth, finding your voice.
Speaking truth to power, even when that power is your own family. It reminds you that even stuck situations can change. One act of integrity can make a huge difference.
You really can.
Which brings us to a final thought for you listening. Think about a time you maybe saw something similar play out. Maybe not a big gala, but any situation where someone was being undermined, subtly or not so subtly, and, silence was the main response.
What do you think the unspoken cost of that silence really was?
And looking back, or even thinking forward, what small act of courage, maybe from you, maybe from someone else, could have shifted things, even just a little bit?
Yeah, definitely something to reflect on in your own life and experiences.